James Harden getting him up pregame before he and the Rockets take on the Pelicans. He had 40 in the win over Orlando the other night, which means his January scoring average went down. That's coming up at the top of the hour as the players-only franchise returns to TNT. Pelicans and Rockets coming up. Grant Hill will be part of that broadcast along with Isaiah Thomas, Jason Terry, and Caron Butler. And as you can see, here he is in the flesh, or at least on TV, joining us from Houston. Grant, there aren't many storylines that can steal the spotlight away from what James Harden has been doing, but this Anthony Davis thing has people talking. What is the ripple effect around the league for you?
Well, Matt, you're right. I mean, James Harden's been great, particularly this last 4 to 6 weeks. But Anthony Davis, the news of his desire to be traded and traded soon from the New Orleans Pelicans is certainly on everyone's mind, particularly here in Houston, as we had a chance to visit with Mike D'Antoni and Alvin Gentry, and just a lot of unknown, a player of his magnitude, the options, what's going to happen moving forward. The Pelicans going to quickly try and do something now prior to the trade deadline, or will they wait until the summer? So just a lot of unknowns right now, but the thing we do know is that obviously he wants out of New Orleans, and the big question is, where will he go? He's the kind of player that can have a huge impact if depending upon where he goes and who he may or may not partner up with. So a lot of excitement, a lot of intrigue. Certainly something on tonight's broadcast I'm sure we'll talk about quite a bit, but certainly the news of the NBA at this moment.
I imagine you will be discussing that a fair amount. The tentacles of this thing are so far-reaching around the league, including the balance of power in whichever conference he lands in. Meanwhile, Harden's numbers in January are just absurd. And now Chris Paul has returned to the lineup. So in your mind, how close are the Rockets to being where they were last season when they wound up winning 65 games?
Yeah, it's a great question, Matt. They're closer. I think early in the year, obviously, they're a different team. They weren't as talented. Mike D'Antoni was starting rookies, even guys who were undrafted rookies. So different roles. They were struggling. They managed to sort of maintain their confidence and spirit through that stretch. Chris Paul went down. And James Harden went crazy and obviously has played at an MVP caliber rate. But I think bringing in a Kenneth Faried when Capella went down has been huge. He was kind of on that bench there, lost in Denver. You move him now to the center position. He's one of the best at setting screens and rolling to the basket and plays with a tremendous amount of energy. Austin Rivers has come over, a veteran who is a really good on-the-ball defender. Now you're getting Chris Paul back. Capella's coming back. So I think this team is trending in the right direction. Obviously, you have to give a lot of credit to James Harden, but I think the personnel has gotten better since the team that they had at the start of the season. Harden is in obviously tip-top form and is great shape right now and playing elite basketball. And then you're getting Chris Paul back, which I think will help, because the big question is, can Harden continue at this pace, throughout the entire season into the postseason? They're going to need Chris Paul to be healthy and productive for them to try to have a run like they had last season.
Grant, Capella played such an important part, especially with Harden on the floor. I mean, this guy was seventh in the league in rebounding, third in field goal percent. All these things that he had done, all-star basically performance by Capella. They lose him and bring in a guy who had almost vanished away from the NBA as far as getting minutes on the floor, getting an opportunity to play. What has Mike D'Antoni said about Faried coming in now and the role he's playing?
Well, Mike D'Antoni, I played for Mike D'Antoni. Dave Griffin, obviously, we were all out there in Phoenix together. He always used to say that the ball finds energy. And there may not be a big guy in the league that has the kind of energy that a Kenneth Faried. I think in Denver, obviously he became the manimal. He played at an elite level, was on the Olympic team at one point, or the U.S. World Championship basketball team. And then Jokic came in, and all of a sudden fours are expected to be able to shoot from the perimeter. That wasn't his game, but it was the perfect timing. There was a void here, Capella being out. He's come in, playing more of the five position, setting screens, rolling to the basket, finishing. When Capella was out for that 10-game stretch, they weren't getting baskets at the rim. They were shooting even more three-pointers with a P.J. Tucker at the center position. But Fareed now sort of plays that diver role, and he dives so hard that you have to really, defensively guarding Houston, you have to make an adjustment. You have to make the proper read. And so now getting back to that basketball that they're accustomed to playing. And Fareed, when Capella comes back, now you have two bigs who can come in and play and give you different looks both on offense and on defense. And then, of course, Chris Paul getting back in the mix. So this team, like I said, is moving in the right direction. But Fareed has been huge, and certainly Mike D'Antoni's been very happy.
Grant, one of the things I think that gets lost in all of this Anthony Davis talk is exactly how good Drew Holiday's been this season and the burden he's been carrying. He's had to play 9 games without AD as it is, and he's probably been their most consistent player. What does Alvin say about Drew and the season he's had and where they go from here?
Yeah, Dave, we talked about Drew with Alvin. He just said he's been solid, he's been consistent. Nothing phases him. He'll come out and be a professional, play at a high level. And you're right, with all the talk this year of Anthony Davis and what's his future, and obviously the news here in the last 48 hours, Drew Holiday is putting up all-star numbers. And 20 points, 8 assists, obviously would be in the all-star game if New Orleans was in the playoff picture. But quietly under the radar, just going about his business, playing great. And, it's interesting. One of the things we talked about, and certainly Drew Holiday plays a role, we talked about this with Alvin, when they've had all their guys healthy, all the guys that played in their, top 7, 8-man rotation, they've been 7-3 this year. And they just, the injuries and AD being out, Mirotic, at times Randall was out, Peyton was out for 31 games early in the year. This team doesn't have great depth, and not having these guys healthy has really hurt them, and you never really got a chance to see what this team could do after the success of last season in the postseason. So, but Drew Holiday, he has been a mainstay, and he's been someone who, even against Houston, he's guarded James Harden well. The games they played prior, he's, been able to, really keep him off the three-point line, not foul him, make him a two-point shooter. And if you look at the numbers, has actually done a pretty good job head-to-head, and I imagine we'll get a lot of that tonight.
Injuries a factor again tonight for the Pelicans. Julius Randle is out. Etuan Moore is going to rest tonight. Elfrid Payton also out with the ankle injury, in addition, of course, to Anthony Davis. Grant Hill, though, fit as a fiddle and ready to broadcast at the top of the hour. Players only tonight. It's the Pelicans and the Rockets. We'll see you then.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Much more coming up here on Game Time between now and the start of that game. The Anthony Davis story is of some interest to the folks in Los Angeles. We'll get the perspective from out there when we come back. Drew Holiday getting set to go in Houston tonight in the middle of what could be maybe his best season as a pro. He's had some really good ones, former All-Star in the Eastern Conference as well. Hasn't shown up in the win column, and the Pelicans are in danger of falling out of relevance in the West. Here's Holiday with Caron Butler ahead of a players-only Tuesday night.
Here with Drew Holiday, can you just talk to me about your mindset coming in here playing the Rockets today?
Right, really good team. We've all seen what James has been doing. Do our best to try to corral him and stop him from scoring 40 points. Run him off the three-point line. That's what they love to do, and also keep James off the free throw line.
Yeah. So I guess you're going to get the first crack at him, or obviously a crack at him. So how would you slow him down, being one of the best two-way guys in the game?
Honestly, just try to keep him guessing. Sometimes play him up close, make him drive. Sometimes play off of him. Try to be handsy, but in a way that it doesn't cause fouls, and really rely on my teammates. Drive down there into the big to be able to block or make him pass it out for a three, and from there we're gonna have to rotate.
I know this is one of the tough times for the organization right now with AD news coming out. You said that based upon him and his future, 90% of the reason you was here because of him. Can you just speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, he's top 3 in the world. His athletic ability, what he can do as an athlete, as a player, even a friend. I've been with him for 6 years, so I feel like for me, coming around a talent of that caliber was kind of once in a lifetime, and we had a good thing going. So, but on that note, man, Anthony's doing everything he's doing best for himself, and I'm not mad at that. He's the ultimate professional. He still comes here and works, and still cheers for his team. So I'm happy for him.
Last question: does that change anything with your future going forward?
As of right now, no. I'm here to play basketball. Today, specifically, I'm here to try to beat the Houston Rockets. So go out there, give it my all, and try to exhaust myself and play as hard as I can.
Hey, good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, bro. Guys.
Interesting thoughts from Drew Holiday there, and got to deal with that guy tonight. James Harden and the Rockets. Chris Paul back in the lineup. They've won 3 in a row and 4 of their last 5 as they get set to go against the Pels. The LA Lakers begin the night 9th in the Western Conference, 6-10 since LeBron James went down. Currently just a game and a half back of the, not even cross town. They're co-tenants. The LA Clippers. They're at Staples Center. That's where we find Sean Powell from NBA.com ahead of the Laker Philadelphia 76er game tonight. Hello, Sean. Good to have you with us as always. First off, the Pelicans obviously will have final say where Anthony Davis goes if and when they trade him, but it is widely assumed that Rich Paul, the agent that AD shares with LeBron James, is orchestrating a move to the Lakers. How deep does Davis mania run in Los Angeles right now?
Well, people here are understandably excited, none of which, by the way, is being expressed by the Lakers because that would be tampering, right?
Of course, we can't have
so
that.
they don't want to give that kind of appearance, so it's kind of muted. But, you know, I wonder about how much of a distraction it is for Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram. I mean, they don't know next week, are they going to be passing the ball to LeBron James or Etuan Moore? I mean, these are young players who figured that they'd be part of the Laker near future and maybe distant future because, you know, all along, you know, they were being groomed to support LeBron James. And all of a sudden, it looks like the Lakers have veered over into the express lane.
Right.
And you wonder whether or not they're going to sacrifice some of their youth for Anthony Davis. I can't see how they can't.
And already you've got Lonzo Ball's people getting out to the media that he would prefer to go to a team without an established point guard. Everybody's jumping into the middle of this thing. LeBron James will miss his 17th straight game tonight. Two-part question here. How close is he to coming back? He's been practicing for a few days now. And secondly, what do the Lakers feel like they've learned about some of these other young players who they saw a lot the last couple of seasons but have had a chance to see over this extended run without the king on the floor?
Well, LeBron will probably return for the Clippers. I mean, he's been back. His practices have been limited. He had limited contact in his last practice, but, you know, reported no pain or anything that would give the Lakers any kind of indication that he's not on the right path. I would think that playing against the Clippers would be a good warm-up for the next game, which is going to be in Oakland against the Warriors. Of course, that's where this terror happened in the first place on Christmas Day when he got hurt. But as far as the young players, I think it's been a mixed bag. You know, suddenly the Lakers see they have a good young center in Zubac. I mean, he's played very well for them. Brandon Ingram has, you know, been hot and cold. Lonzo, of course, got hurt, so we don't really know the complete picture there. And Kyle Kuzma has done well as far as being a primary scorer. But again, I mean, you know, when LeBron comes back, that changes everything. So whatever they saw without LeBron really doesn't mean that much because when LeBron comes back, he goes back to controlling the ball, and all of a sudden the system is different.
Sean, Philadelphia is a team that actually benefited from a superstar asking to be traded. They traded some young depth to get into that situation with Jimmy Butler. How are they feeling now about the fit of Jimmy and Joel, and what does it sound like for them in terms of just their progress to this point?
I would say it's probably still a work in progress. You know, everyone's still trying to figure out their roles. I know Jimmy Butler had that little hiccup there where, you know, he had to talk to the coach about his role. And all this is, you know, ongoing. But the good news is that they still have another 25, 30 games to get it really right. I think they have a lot of confidence going into the post-All-Star break. They feel that there is cohesion. Of course, you know, once the playoffs begin and, you know, you get into a little bit of trouble and then all that goes out the window. But I think right now that the Sixers feel good about themselves. I think they would love to have an additional shooter. Now, whether or not they can pull something like that off at the trade deadline without parting with any of their nucleus remains to be seen. But I think when you look at this team right now, if they would just have another shooter on the floor like they had last season, then, you know, I think that they'd be something to, you know, a team to watch.
I remember last year they picked up Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova, both stretch guys for virtually nothing as just buyout guys. unlikely to be able to do that 2 years in a row. Sean Powell with us from Los Angeles ahead of the 76ers and Lakers. Appreciate the time, Sean. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Guys, take me into the Laker locker room with all these young players who are obviously potential trade targets now with this Anthony Davis thing out there, whether it's next week, over the summer, etc. You know, it's easy to say, it's a part of the game, it's a business, etc. But these are a lot of young guys who haven't been through this before.
I honestly believe that there were X number of players in that locker room that never gave a thought for a while that this could ever happen. I mean, they were on the Lakers. Wow, I'm with the Los Angeles Lakers. And then, wow, LeBron's here and he wins championships.
Right.
I have a chance to be on a run. And think about them. If their agents didn't caution them, they may have invested in a home in the LA area, thinking I'm going to be here the next 3, 4, 5 years for sure. And now all of a sudden the reality of this comes out when they're looking and seeing all the packages that people are putting together and, that's my name in there.
Right.
I could be out of here. Hits you all of a sudden, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I actually think because so many of those kids have agents that would have explained to them that the timeline has changed once LeBron got there, to some degree, many of them have probably been waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think it's possible that this is something that doesn't take them by surprise. I think it's something that many of them have realized is a possibility. And what's been significant for them, I think, is because of LeBron's absence, and you talked about this with Sean, they've been able to do what they do a little bit more and have sort of a freedom out there that they can just go play and every possession isn't going to be judged. I think it's easier to play in that environment. So they've gotten to showcase themselves a little bit. I think Lonzo Ball's camp coming out with word that he would not be comfortable in a certain situation speaks to the fact that this is a topic in that locker room and has been for quite some time.
And by the way, that's just the camp getting ahead of things and doing its job, right? You signal to whoever who's listening.
Sure.
Would like to go here, would not like to go there as
in
much.
a matter of speaking.
It may or may not actually work, but it's worth a shot. Drew Holiday and the Pelicans getting set to go against the Rockets in Houston at the top of the hour on TNT.